Imagine being a quiet school librarian in a small town. Nothing surprising until one day you're asked to remove every book that conflicts with a new directive. You're told it's just policy. Everyone complies, all your colleagues do, except you. So you face the sink or swim moment, comply or protect the books you cherish. You choose the latter and lose your job on the spot. Yet, weeks later, public outcry forces the policy reversal. The library reopens, and you're invited back, hailed for courage. She refuses and gets fired. Weeks later, the same town begs her to return. Why? Because someone had to stand when it mattered. That's the beat of today's message. From Babylon's furnace to our own moment of truth, every small act of loyalty builds us for the bigger battle. Stay tuned. Hi, dear. Thank you for joining in today. If it's your first time here, welcome on board. Please remember to subscribe for more. It's Q2E12 captioned Precursors. Let's dive in.
Did you know that the Bible has been a bestseller every year for many years now? It is the most printed, most read, most smuggled book in the world, but also it is the most misunderstood. Contrary to what many think, it is not exclusively a counsel on spiritual issues. It is a symphony of proverbs, psalms, poems, some very romantic like the Songs of Solomon, ancient history, prophecy. But beneath it all is a coded map of time. At the heart of it, prophecy. Our focus today. Not vague horoscopes or doomsday predictions, but razor precise revelations of what was, what is, and what is yet to come. Now, there are three major ways people interpret Bible prophecy, three major school of thoughts. Number one is the preterist view, assuming that all prophecy happened in the past. It's all in the past, nothing to see here. The second school of thought is the futurist view, assuming that all prophecy will happen in the future. It's all coming someday in the future. And the historist view, assuming the prophecy is happening right now, and we are standing on it. Now, why is this important? Well, if it's all in the past, then we have nothing to worry about, right? We can learn a thing or two from them, but that's it. It's all in the past. On the contrary, if it's in the future, we only need to worry about when the prophecy will start, what time exactly it begins to unfold. And then we can start paying attention, right? But if it's a continuum from the past through the present into the future, it means part of these prophecies are either unraveling in our present timeline or building up for the next in the future. Now, that would mean you are not just reading prophecy, you are living in it. In which case, it is important that we pay attention now.
We find some clues in the Bible that help us settle this matter. In Revelation chapter 1, verse 19, Jesus tells John, "Write therefore what you have seen, what is now, and what will take place later." Past, present, future. One seamless thread, one prophetic timeline. And it starts where few think to look, in the metallic dreamscape of a Babylonian king. Daniel chapter 2 unfolds a breathtaking vision, empires rising and falling like dominoes. Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome, all forecast centuries before history would catch up. And yet, here we are, still in that timeline, still inside that vision. And soon, a stone, not cut by human hands, will strike the statue, and the kingdoms of men will crumble. This is historicism, and it's not just a theory, it's your world. Let's step into Daniel chapter 2 and discover the future from the past.
Imagine this. It is the dead of the night. A powerful king, the most feared man on earth, is tossing on the bed, drenched in his sweat, his heart pounding, his eyes snap open. He has just seen something so terrifying it robs him of sleep. Not a ghost, not a nightmare, but the future. King Nebuchadnezzar, ruler of Babylon, had a dream. One dream that held the fate of the world. But interestingly, he could not remember any of it. All he knew was that it shook him to his core. And what came next was almost fatal.
Wait, he couldn't remember it, but he wanted the wise men to interpret it? That's insane.
Exactly. I thought same too. He summoned all the magicians, astrologers, dream interpreters, every so-called seer in Babylon. And he told them, tell me my dream and then tell me what it means, or you die. The room went still. Eyes widened, panic spread. Because how do you reveal a dream you did not dream? Doesn't make any sense.
But then Daniel stepped forward, young, calm, connected. He didn't have access to Babylon's secret scrolls, but he had access to God. And that night, heaven opened the curtains of time. Daniel didn't just see the dream, he saw the blueprint of world history from Babylon to Persia, Greece, Rome, even to the fragmented nations of modern Europe and beyond.
The dream? A massive statue, head of gold, chest of silver, belly of bronze, legs of iron, and feet of iron mixed with clay. Each metal, a different kingdom. Each transition, a change in world power. But then a stone cut without hands comes hurtling from the heavens. It strikes the statue at his feet. The whole image crumbles into dust. But the stone, it is not just judgment, it is a kingdom that will never be destroyed. It is God's final takeover.
But that was thousands of years ago. What's it got to do with us?
Everything. Because we are standing at the toes of that statue right now. The iron and clay. The vision, fragility. A part of history where men's alliances fail and God's kingdom is near. World wars, royal marriages, political unions, nothing has held the nations together, just like the prophecy said.
This isn't random. The prophecy flows like a river, one empire after another, uninterrupted. It's not allegory, it's history mapped in advance. That's the historicist approach. And without it, the rest of Daniel and Revelation just won't make much sense.
Daniel chapter 2 is a thunderous declaration. God knows. He knew when Babylon would fall. He knew when Rome will rise. He knows what happens tomorrow. He's already written the end. So friends, if your life feels like out of control, remember this. The future is not a mystery to God. It is a manuscript He already authored. And the best part, He invites you to be part of the kingdom that will never, ever fail. This brings us to Daniel chapter 3. Chapter 2 ends with the king acknowledging the sovereignty of God and declaring him as the only one deserving of worship. In his words, surely your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings. Daniel 2, verse 47. Interestingly, chapter 3 begins with a golden defiance, a towering image of gold gleaming under the scorching sun, 90 feet tall, 9 feet wide, set in the plain of Dura, so everyone could see it, worship it, or die. Just one chapter ago, Nebuchadnezzar had bowed before Daniel and honored the God of heaven. But now, he builds his own prophecy in defiance of the express prophecy from God in the previous chapter. One that says Babylon will never fall. One that screams, I reject the God of Daniel and his prophecy. The statue God revealed in the dream had multiple metals: gold, silver, bronze, iron, each one a kingdom that would rise and fall. But Nebuchadnezzar did not want that. He wanted a permanence, and so he went full gold.
Wait, wasn't that just a political stunt? Like a unity ceremony or something?
That's what it looked like on the outside, but in truth, it was an issue of allegiance, a worship war. Everyone had to bow, no exceptions. This was not just about politics, it was about power. To whom will you yield your allegiance to? Worship became the currency of loyalty. And that's where things turned prophetic.
But 3 men didn't bow. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, young exiles standing alone in a crowd of thousands. Their silence, deafening. Their defiance, dangerous. They were dragged before the king, who gave them one more chance. Bow or burn. And their reply? Chills. Our God can deliver us, but even if He doesn't, we still won't bow. Daniel chapter 3, verses 17 through 18.
That kind of faith, rare. It is not based on the outcome of events. It is based on a conviction and loyalty. They were not bargaining with God. They were not saying, well, rescue us first and then we'll obey you. They were saying clearly, even if we die, they will stand for you. No excuses, no compromises, and definitely no shoe tying tricks to blend in while bowing. This was obedience in the open, even if the heavens fall.
But isn't that a bit extreme? Like, couldn't they just pretend?
Casey, that's exactly the temptation that most of us face today. Just blending, just take it. God understands. But Jesus once said, he who is faithful in what is least is faithful also in much. Luke 16 verse 10. Compromise does not start with fire. It starts with little stuff. And how we handle those will determine if we stand when the heat is turned up or not. It starts now.
This is not just an isolated event. This will happen again. Revelation 13 reads, He was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. Another image, another death decree, and once again, worship becomes the line in the sand. Different circumstances, but the same principle. In the end, just like in Babylon, standing for God will mean standing out. And standing out might cost everything, but it will be worth it.
The story of the fiery furnace is not just a child's tale, it is a dress rehearsal for the last days. Will you bow to survive or stand to be saved? At the end of the day, faith is not only proven by what we avoid, faith is proven by what we refuse to do, even if we burn. What if I told you that the golden statue of the plain of Dura was not just ancient history, but prophecy in rehearsal? That the fiery furnace was just a prelude, that another image is coming, bigger, broader, and global. Revelation 13 says it very plainly: an image to the beast will be set up, and all the world will be commanded, worship it or die.
Hold on. Didn't we just see something like this happen in Daniel? A command to worship an image under threat of death?
Exactly. And that's the point of this study. Daniel 3 and Revelation 13 aren't just similar, they echo. In Babylon, worship was a loyalty test. In the last days, same test, different stage, global players. The beast powers of Revelation will demand worship, but true worship can't be forced. It's a choice of allegiance.
Revelation 14 draws the line. Worship him who made the heaven and earth, the creator, not the beast, not its image. The contrast is startling. God says, remember the Sabbath. I am your creator. The beast says, doesn't matter. Forget about it. Obey my authority instead. This is not about rituals, it's about allegiance. The commandments of God versus the decrees of man.
But I mean, nobody's asking us to bow to a statue today, right?
True. But worship isn't always physical. It's whatever holds our ultimate loyalty and allegiance. Paul said in Romans 1, some exchanged the truth of God for a lie. They worshipped the created instead of the Creator. Power, success, culture, even religion can become an idol. If anything other than God defines your values, dictates your choices, or demands your loyalty, it's your image.
Revelation 14 warns of God's wrath on those who worship the beast. Sounds harsh until you realize this. God is a jealous redeemer. He paid everything for you. He will not share you with Babylon. And so in love, he sends a loud cry, come out of her, my people. The three Hebrew boys once stood tall while the crowd bowed. In the end, that's our call too, even if we stand alone.
Jesus said it best, he who is not with me is against me. Matthew 12:30. In the final crisis, there won't be a middle lane. You'll either gather with Christ or scatter in fear. Allegiance isn't claimed, it's revealed. And the time to choose is now.
In Babylon, the image glittered with gold. In Revelation, it breathes with deception. Either way, the test is the same. Who will you worship? Who will you obey? Who will define your eternity? And just like before, the furnace may be lit, but so is our faith. Because when we choose the Creator over the counterfeit, even the fire cannot consume what God has sealed.
This might be a good time to explore lessons from the early church and their persecution. The gospel has always been dangerous, not because it brings violence, but because it shakes systems. In Acts 12, Herod had just beheaded James. Peter was next. And the world was watching. The early church was young, fragile, and hunted. But it was also bold, and that made it dangerous to two powers, religion and empire. Sound familiar?
Wait, why were they being hunted again? Just for preaching about Jesus?
That's exactly it. Christ's resurrection threatened the old world order. Paganism knew if this gospel spread, her altars would fall. And so both earth and hell united to crush it. It was Revelation 13 in rehearsal. The beast, the false prophet, and the death decree. But back then, it wore a Roman badge.
But here is the plot twist. The night before Peter's execution, the dude is asleep. Not tossing, not pacing, like real deep sleep. So deeply that the angel had to strike him awake. How do you sleep that comfortably knowing execution awaits in the morning? That kind of peace, that's what happens when your trust outruns your fear.
Sleep? Knowing your head is on the chopping block? I'd be calling for a lawyer or writing my will.
But Peter had already died to self. That's why fear couldn't grip him. Whether angel or executioner walked through that door, he was ready. The question is, are we? When the night gets dark and the chains tighten, can we sleep in surrender?
Think about this. Some were delivered, others, like James, were not. Even Peter, though saved that night, would one day die by crucifixion. Jesus told him that straight up. They will stretch out your hands, and he said, "Follow me."
Some think God's will always equals escape here. But sometimes faith looks like endurance. And even in death, we glorify God. Miracles? Yes. But martyrdom? Also yes. That's why our loyalty must never be based on outcomes, but on conviction and a deep love for God.
So, deliverance is up to God, but the decision to follow, that's up to me.
Exactly. He may open the prison, or he may call you through it. Either way, follow him. Because chains do not define your freedom, faith does. And when your story is written in eternity, may it read, they did not flinch. They followed the Lamb wherever he led, regardless.
I don't get it. Dying over a day, a death decree because of the Sabbath? Sounds too extreme to be real.
In a perfect world, I will agree with you, but we're not in a perfect world. In our imperfect world, we do not identify truth by how it sounds or feels, but by the facts it presents. When Jesus and two other angels were hosted by Abraham on their way to destroy the city of Sodom, while breaking bread, Jesus said, "By this time next year, your wife Sarah will bear a child." Abraham was 99 and Sarah 89 at the time. It sounded unreal, but did it happen? It sounded extreme when Pharaoh chased Israel to the sea. It sounded extreme when Nebuchadnezzar built a furnace for bowing out. It definitely sounded extreme when families were slaughtered and some thrown to wild beasts in amphitheaters during the Dark Ages for refusing to bend the knee. Point is, It always sounds extreme until it happens. Then it's called prophecy fulfilled.
Revelation 13 is not fiction, it's a spoiler alert. A time will come when law and worship will collide, when the line will not be drawn with guns but with conviction. And the issue, the same one from Eden, from Sinai, from Calvary, from today. Who will you worship? The Creator or the counterfeit?
The Sabbath was never just about rest. It's God's signature etched in creation, a weekly reminder of who made you and who owns your loyalty. The beast wants to erase that, wants to trade creator authority for tradition, God's command for man's convenience. Mark 7:7-8. And history shows us when truth threatens power, power always fights back, and it's not pretty.
Wait, you're saying they tried to kill Jesus just for healing on the Sabbath?
Yup. Matthew 12, John 15. Read it for yourself. They could not stand that Jesus obeyed God more than their rules. The Sabbath exposed their hearts, and they wanted him dead for that.
It wasn't just about healing, it was about authority. Jesus obeyed the Father, and the Pharisees, they obeyed tradition. Same script, different cast. And Revelation says it's coming again, only this time globally, with laws, with mandates, and yes, with death decrees.
So, what happens when obeying God costs you your job, or your freedom, or even your life? Will you rationalize your way out, bow just a little, fake a nod? Or will you stand like Daniel, like Jesus?
I used to think prophecy was just scary stuff, but now I see it's really about loyalty and love. And I guess the question isn't if I'll face this test, it's when.
And that's exactly right. Final events are not just about beasts and plagues, they are about choices. When the mark is enforced and the world chooses comfort over conviction, will you stand for the one who stood for you? Or will you trade eternity for temporary peace? Choose wisely. The line is already being drawn, and your silence is a decision too. And that's a wrap, fam. This week's journey ends here. But next week, we will be exploring the topic, images of the end. Until then, please kindly keep sharing. Let the world know truth still matters. And if you're still on the fence, it's not too late. Jesus is calling. Eternity is waiting. I'll see you next week, right here on the Sabbath School Doodling, where we are still making it make sense one truth at a time.
Thanks for riding with us today, friends. If today's study stirred your heart or sparked your thoughts, go ahead, subscribe, like, comment, and share this with someone who needs a word right now. And hey, if you haven't yet made that life-altering decision to follow Christ, you still can, but don't wait. The clock is ticking and grace is calling. I'll catch you next week, God willing. Until then, remember, we're still auditioning to take over in heaven. No retreat, no surrender.